And we're going to start the town hall, and we're sincere about what our offer was to Congressman Carnahan, and we continue to be sincere about it. We invited him to be here and to be the keynote speaker, to speak for 10 or 15 minutes about the health care bill, that the one he's voted for, which is over here occupying his chair. You'll see the House bill is a couple thousand pages. Still unclear all of what's in there, but that's the one that he voted for. And we also were hoping that he would send staff tonight. And unfortunately, they did not see fit to send staff, and I think that's a shame. Silent in this district, in this 3rd Congressional District, for 5 or 6 months because of the Congressman's choice not to hold another town hall. So let me say a few things about the healthcare, the so-called healthcare reform bill. I think it's very important for us to know that even while you've been sitting here, secret meetings and secret deals are taking place to change 1/6 of our economy. While I drove over here 45 minutes ago, we heard that the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, had struck an inside deal to only tax some of you that have health care plans that are particularly good. They call them Cadillac plans. I think my family, we call them good health care plans. But whatever they are, only some of you get to be taxed for your health care plan. Now, it may be a surprise to you, but they're picking winners and losers in Washington, D.C., and here in Missouri, in the 3rd Congressional District, we don't get to be winners. It's others who are getting the inside deals. Nebraska got their Medicaid paid for. Louisiana got a bunch of their stuff paid for. We don't even know the extent of the deals because the deals are occurring behind closed doors with no transparency and with a lot of special interests at the table. And I think that's a first concern we all ought to express up front. We called Congressman Carnahan to a meeting because we wanted him to discuss the health care bill before he votes. Before he votes again to put something into law. The lack of transparency and what's going on behind closed doors is a breathtaking slap in the face to the American people. And I don't think we're going to take it for long, and I certainly don't think we're going to take it in the next election cycle. Let's talk about some specifics of the health care bill that came out of the Senate. We've heard a little bit about the health care bill that came out of the House. The one that came out of the Senate is $2 trillion. It's a $2 trillion spending bill. It includes $500 billion in tax increases. I'm not sure that you have thought it through. I bet most of you have. But tax increases in a recession doesn't really work too well. When you don't have much money, you don't have a great job, and you're worried about your future, having taxes piled on. We're cutting Medicare, and we'll hear later from some seniors that are in the Medicare programs that are being cut. We're cutting Medicare, hundreds of billions of dollars from our Medicare, from our seniors, who are aging into a system that is already strained and is already full of fraud and abuse. We're not addressing fraud and abuse in a meaningful way. So how are we paying for this, $2 trillion? We're paying for it by taxes, and we're paying for it by cutting our seniors' care. And we're paying for it by borrowing more money from Chinese and OPEC and others. And we're piling debt on our children, ourselves and our children and our grandchildren in a way that's never happened before in American history. It will transform our lives to continue to borrow as much debt as we're borrowing to do this bill and to do the other things that this current Congress has undertaken. Some of the specifics in the bill, that we've all talked about, where the money is being spent, how the insurance plans are going to be structured. I talked to a woman out in the lobby here talking about some of the plans and how are you going to go about, how is government going to decide what our plan is worth and whether to tax us? And the answer is there'll be a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. that will decide what your plan is worth and what you're allowed to buy, to have as health care before you pay taxes on it. So it's going to drive your decision making, it's going to distort the market, it's going to change how we buy health care. Ultimately, I think we won't know what this bill is and what it all means until it's passed and it starts to be implemented. But let me tell you 2 things about my position. I believe that the next Congress needs to begin systematically doing 2 things. One is repeal whatever health care bill is passed. To people that say they're unwilling to repeal the bill, they think that sounds too harsh, my answer is don't run to be in Congress with me. Because what I'm going to do is go in and we're going to take it step by step and repeal the bill and get us back to where we were before we started. The second promise that I would make about this bill is it will be implemented over the course of years by bureaucrats. People that you never met, that you never heard of, that will have power over how your health care is delivered. They may be good people. I bet they are. I bet they're nice people that have families. But they'll be telling us what our life is like. And what I promise you, starting in the next Congress, is you'll have at least one congressman who will spend his days waking up and finding ways to throw sand in the gears of what those bureaucrats are doing in Washington, D.C. today. Ultimately, the health of each of us is about the future of our families and the future of our lives and the future of how we respect the beginnings and ends of our lives. And if you have bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. making decisions about your health care, about how much things should cost, what should be covered, you know, there's a new Medicare panel that will be in charge of deciding what you should get and what you shouldn't get. My opinion is we do need health care reform, and I'll talk about a few reforms that we could do tomorrow that I'll do when I'm in Congress that will make a difference. But what we don't need is to empower more bureaucrats who will make decisions based on values we don't know and values we may not recognize in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else. What we need is doctors and patients and professionals and insurance companies to the table to figure out how to make things work better so that our values are represented and our futures are respected. Let me say 3 reforms that I think healthcare reform should have included instead of going into the billions of dollars of giveaways and the transformation of such a large chunk of our economy. And then we need to get to you all commenting and talking about what you're hearing and what you're feeling and what your questions are. The 3 are, the first thing we need to do is acknowledge insurance companies need to be forced to the table. The insurance companies are not always looking out for the patients. They need to be forced to the table, and they need to be told, we're going to have insurance plans that are Missouri, Florida, New York, wherever, and you can compete, you can buy those plans wherever you want. If you want the California... California plan, you know, kind of fruits and nuts and all that, you can buy that one. If you want to buy the Florida plan, orange juice, whatever it is, you can buy whatever plan you want. And the insurance companies don't like it because it creates competition. And the state regulators don't like it because they like to tack on things and make things the way they are. So New Jersey has a number of mandates and other states have less. And whatever it is, force competition, it'll drive down costs, it'll give you choices. And then you live with the choices. If you buy a plan that doesn't cover you for X or Y, then you live with the choices. You make those choices and you're personally responsible and you're empowered in a way that is what it means to be American and what it means to be a citizen. Here, here. The second thing common sense reform that could happen tomorrow, that should happen, is our state, local, federal governments should create incentives and opportunities and help them work better for our small businesses to pool together to buy insurance. This is the most common sense thing when you talk to small business owners who are creating jobs that they tell you works well. Because if you're a big business and you have 50,000 employees, you're able to go and negotiate a good plan that works for your people, that helps spread the risk. It works well. If you're not 50,000 but 50 people, you're in a tough spot. You know, ask the MacArthurs, you know, ask the people that have 45, 50, 65. If you have 5 employees, it's really tough. Well, we have a system set up that can put together plans so that if you have 50, you can get together with 999 others and put your 50 together, and you can get to 50,000, and you can have the power to, again, create competition, drive down costs, give people options, and that's better health care. Common sense, it's something we can do, and we need to do it, and the Congress has refused to address that and to take that up seriously, and it's a shame. The third thing we can do is we should go and we should really root out fraud and abuse in our system. Look, I used to work for the state. I saw Medicaid up close. The fraud and abuse is unbelievable. It's in the tens of millions of dollars every year, depending on which way you look at it. At the federal government, it's billions of dollars. We'll hear later from people I know who are veterans, and one of my friends here is particularly experienced in the Veterans Administration and watching things. They'll tell you that the systems are not run well enough. If we make a promise to our vets to give them health care, we ought to give it to them. We ought to not give them a system. If you saw 60 Minutes last week, what you hear from veterans is they say the VA, what they feel and what they live with is that they process your paperwork, they delay, and they delay till you die. And that's what the vets feel. Well, that's a heck of a deal. Put your life on the line, survive, come home, and then we're going to wait you out and see if you die and not give you health care. So our federal government, and there's plenty of blame for both parties, our federal government needs to understand when it comes to the VA and Medicare and Medicaid, when we set up these systems, if we're not going to run them well and tackle the fraud and abuse, then let's not move on and start new programs that are going to have the same problems. And I think, again, it's common sense.